Hey there guys. So we are now halfway through our closed guard curriculum. We spent last month looking at ways to pull our opponents down into submissions, either taking their elbow across the center line for the side scissor, to the center line with the top lock, or out and away from the center line using the clamp position and the inside wrist grip. Now this month we're going to look at an opponent who maybe is doing a good job of keeping their arms in a good, safe, defensive position, and they do a good job of keeping their posture. When our opponent is doing a good job of keeping their arms safe and keeping good posture, usually sweeps are a good thing to try from there. This week, we're going to focus on two sweeps. One, the flower sweep, and two, the pendulum sweep. Now these sweeps are somewhat similar, they have similar elements, but they're also oftentimes confused. Oftentimes people will think the flower sweep is a pendulum sweep, or they'll think the pendulum sweep is a flower sweep. And there are some key distinct differences to help you know the difference. A flower sweep is usually done when my center line and my opponent's center line are lined up. The pendulum sweep is done when I misalign our center lines to a perpendicular angle, and then we hit the pendulum sweep from there. Okay? So I'm going to show the flower sweep first, then the pendulum sweep. So the flower sweep is one of my favorite sweeps from closed guard. The grips that we use to hit the flower sweep are pretty non-threatening. I set my grips and my opponent is oftentimes none the wiser as to what I'm setting up. And then in the blink of an eye, they go from on top in closed guard to their back on the mat with me in the mount. Okay? So because of these, because of the subtlety of the grip fighting and the fact that it comes on quick, I find a lot of success with this. The pendulum sweep is mechanically stronger, but it takes a little bit more effort to set up, and so it's a little more telegraphed. But let's take a look at that first sweep first, my flower sweep. Okay? So let's go from head on, I think. So from this position, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a straight cuff grip on my partner, and then from this straight cuff grip, I'm going to cover his wrist with my wrist, just like so. If I just take a cuff grip and I go to off balance at him, he can put his hand on the mat for base. But when I cover my wrist over his wrist and I go to off balance him, he can't base with that arm. It's trapped. So we take our cuff grip and we cover wrist to wrist. My right hand is going to take a grip down here near the cuff of the pants. You rotate it. So from here, I take my first grip on the wrist, my right grip is going to go down here at the cuff of the pants. I'm not reaching inside the pants. This is an illegal grip, and it can be hazardous for your fingers if your fingers get wrapped up and caught. So we're gripping on the outside of the pants. Now oftentimes if your opponent's sitting down heavy, there's going to be not a lot of material to grip. It'll be pretty tight. So what I do to loosen up the pants is I'll use a knee pull to pull Adam's butt away from his heels, and that will typically give me a little bit more fabric to work with. So now I have my two grips set. The third thing I set is my left foot. I put my left foot down here right next to the ankle. So I have these grips, Adam, let's rotate to the foot. So I set my two grips like I've already described. Now my foot is going to plant right here next to the ankle. I want to trap Adam's right leg from basing out with either his right knee or his right foot. If I just plant my foot randomly out here somewhere, it doesn't do anything to stop Adam from basing with his right leg. So, wrist to wrist with a cuff grip. I grab the pants low, knee pulling to get a grip if I need to. My left foot traps to the ankle. So now we have all of our grips set, and now all that's left is the sweeping action. Okay, for the sweeping action, let's rotate. Let's go right here. For the sweeping action, I set all my grips. Left foot plants, right leg opens up wide to the floor. And then I'm going to come crashing up high into his armpit to put his shoulder down on the mat. This will now allow me to start driving on my left foot, my foot that's on the mat, driving myself up, and I come up to the mount position. A common mistake that I see with this technique is that people will not do enough of a wind up with their right leg. They'll set their grips and then they'll go here. But obviously, as you can see, that doesn't really take Adam out of balance much at all. So make it a point, when you set your grips and you're ready to hit the flower sweep, that your right leg opens up to the mat, so that now I have space and distance that I can use to build up momentum as I take my right leg and I bring it up crashing into the armpit. The placement of hitting him with my leg is also important. I want to go high in the armpit so I affect the spine high on the lever. If I come down here near the hips or on the ribs, I won't affect the spine much at all. So I open it up, I take it high on the shoulder, here. Now as he's falling out of base, I'm going to take this grip with the gi pants and I'm going to start punching this up to the ceiling so that he can't put that leg back down on the ground. Now, I drive up and I complete the flower sweep. Let's do one more regular speed here. Set grips, plant, and we go. So that's the flower sweep. I'm going to show you guys how we can take the flower sweep and convert it into a hip sweep. This is going to bridge the gap between what we're learning this week and what we're going to be learning in week 3 this month. Okay? So, from the flower sweep, I use all my correct grips, cuff grip, low on the pants, block the ankle. Now I go to sweep him, I break him down to either his elbow or his shoulder, but not enough to actually get all the way up. However, the benefit of this is that it gets Adam's head and his hands out of my way. I go here, I get the hands and head out of the way, but I didn't take him over. From here, I'm going to release the cuff grip, come up to a prop as I come over the head. Adam's going to go to correct himself, and as he does, I bring my arm over his head, I lift my hips up, turn my chest down to the floor, and now I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to make a big step across his body. And I come up with a hip sweep. So that's another option out of the flower sweep. We're going to see that. We're going to see the hip sweep in more detail, learning the fine details and the nuanced mechanics of the hip sweep in week 3 this month. That's a good way to connect the flower sweep to the hip sweep. So that's the flower sweep where I stay lined up with my opponent and I just take my leg and I crash it into the side. Now we're going to start looking at a pendulum sweep where I actually get a perpendicular angle to my opponent using my leg to help me get an angle, and we sweep from there. Now first I'm just going to show, well, I'll show the pendulum sweep and I'm going to show you a quick solo drill you guys can do from home. So the pendulum sweep is going to look like this. I'm going to grab the seam that runs down the back of Adam's sleeve, I'm going to take a scoop grip on his leg, and now my left leg is going to kick out, and I'm going to start to get an angle as I pull myself perpendicular. And I can start taking Adam up and over with a pendulum sweep. Solo drill here. So the way that I did that was I used my legs in a very specific way. From my back, I'm going to throw my left leg out wide, and then I'm going to throw it down my center line. Okay, straight down this way. Here, here. As I do that, I make this first extension wide, and now when I throw my left leg down, my right leg is going to kick up to my right. And I split my legs. I end up almost like this. So when I do this and I let the momentum carry me, you can see that I can go in a circle, almost 90 degrees there. Now sometimes you'll have to do this more than once to get a good angle, and that's just fine. I go again. And I've gone, all right? You can do this in a circle to teach you how to use your legs to gain angle. Understand that anytime you're in a closed guard and you're trying to attack with an arm bar, a triangle, a pendulum sweep, an omoplata, most of our attacks from the closed guard come out of some form of angle. So learning to use your legs as a pendulum to get out to a perpendicular angle will not only make you an effective sweeper with the pendulum sweep, it'll also make you an effective submission artist with arm bars, triangles, and omoplatas. Okay? So now that you guys have seen how to do this drill on your own, where we go out, and then we split our legs. Now we're going to see how we can use that feature to sweep an opponent. So from this position, I'm going to have my left arm come up here to the back of the seam, or the seam on the back of the sleeve. You can try to do this with a cuff grip, like we did with the flower sweep, but let's understand the pros and cons of these grips. If I grip Adam's cuff, and I have a scoop grip, I have nothing controlling Adam's posture. So if I want to get a pendulum sweep out of this, and he sits back, I need to use a good job with the knee pull. I need my knees to pull forward, and then I need to go into my circular leg pendulum action, where I go here, and then I go. That can be kind of tricky to follow up a knee pull immediately with those pendulum actions. So I'm just going to teach you guys using this grip here, an armpit grip, or a high tricep grip, where I'm gripping the seam that runs down the back of Adam's sleeve, and this gives me a good ability to start pulling Adam's head and shoulders forward. Okay, so the knee pull doesn't need to be as strong here. From here, I got my grip on the back of the tricep. My right arm is going to go in, I'm going to take a scoop grip. If Adam's sitting on his heels and there's no space for a scoop grip, I use a knee pull to take his butt off of his heel and create enough space for my scoop grip to go through. Here. Now, just like I did in that solo drill, I'm going to split my legs as I get to an angle. It's actually easier to do with a partner because I can use a scoop grip to help pull me to an angle. So watch, I'm going to kick out with my legs and then split my legs. Here. Let's rotate a little bit so it's the camera. Perfect. So I get my grips, I kick out, and I come to this position here. Now oftentimes you may have to do this more than once. That's normal. That's actually typical. I might have to do this again a second or even a third time. And as I do this, my scoop grip is going to be reaching across my head, across my center line with my right hand. So we're going to go a second time, and a third, as I continue to kick, and I take them out and over. So I'll show this one time regular speed now. Get my grips, my scoop grip, and now I'm going to go. And we take them up and over. Now, that pendulum sweep with the tricep grip actually has a problem. Maybe you guys have already thought of what it was. Yes, the tricep grip does a good job of allowing me to pull my opponent's weight forward. But what does it not do a very good job of? Controlling the hand. We pull our opponent's weight forward. They might still be able to put their hand on the mat. However, when they reach for the mat, they leave an extended arm, and that gives us opportunities to go into submissions. So now, I'm going to show you guys how we use that same pendulum sweep setup to set up a series of submissions: arm bars, omoplatas, and triangles. Actually, let's go this way for the camera. So, I'm here. I'm going to get my grip. Now, as I go, I want to keep Adam's hand a little toward my center line. If Adam's elbow goes out too wide, I won't be able to get my left leg around his head. But I get my tricep grip, and as I go, I want to try to push his elbow a little bit toward my center line. I won't be able to stop him from basing completely, but I will be able to keep his arm in enough to throw my leg over the head. So let's take a look. I get my grips, my scoop grip, and now I start to go. He's going to start to try to base. But now, because his elbow is inside my hip, just like we studied in the top lock, as long as the elbow is inside the hip, my leg will be free to come up over the head and catch. I control the wrist, and we hip in for the arm bar. If he violently yanks out of the arm bar, I'm going to stuff this wrist in my pocket, kick to an angle for the omoplata. Now I can look to sit up, covering the hips, and I can finish either the submission, or he might roll through and give me a sweep. Do a quick demonstration of roll through. And I come up in the top position here. Okay, now let's say out of that omoplata, he turns back into us. Well, that's going to give us a triangle. So I'm going to use the pendulum sweep as a way to get to a good angle and expose my opponent's arm. I take my tricep grip, my scoop grip, and now as I go up for a sweep, Adam's going to look to base. There he went to base, he extended the arm, and there's the arm bar. If he pulls out of the arm bar, we catch the omoplata. Now, if he tries to turn back into the omoplata, fine. I bring my leg from the left side of his head to the right side of his head, and I wrap a triangle. We know what to do from a trap triangle. Control the posture of the collar tie, get a scoop grip, and now, just like we did for that for the pendulum sweep, I'm going to throw my right leg out to an angle to get to a good attacking angle here. I lock my triangle, and we have our finish. So that's the pendulum sweep. Maybe not the strongest variation of the pendulum sweep, because we're only using the tricep grip, but it does lead to some nice submission attacks. And if your opponent is a little bit more naive, you still might get the sweep. Now, that grip is just one way to do the pendulum sweep, but it's not the strongest. The strongest way of doing the pendulum sweep involves something we call an arm trap, where I take my opponent's arm and I physically trap it to the center line or across the center line. So if we're going to trap an elbow across the center line or to the center line, how do you think we're going to do that? Side scissor and a top lock. So we're going to start taking the lessons that we looked at last month, and we're going to see how to turn those positions of advantage for ourselves into a good strong pendulum sweep that is much stronger. The reason this pendulum sweep is stronger is because the arm is physically trapped across the center line and he has no hope of basing out on that side. The arm trap completely takes away his ability to base and post on that side. So let's do a quick recap of setting up the side scissor and the top lock. So from here, I use a 2-on-1 grip. It could be a cross cuff and a straight elbow. I could use a line of tension, and then if he's pulling away from me, this creates a line of tension. I can pull that and send it across. However we want to do it. Lift my hips, send across, and we set up the side scissor. From the side scissor, I form a knee turn, and I lock it down with a lat grip over here. Now from here, I like to go through and get the lapel with my left hand. Now from here, we know the elbow across the center line was just the first battle. Do you remember what the second battle was? It was a battle for head height. If I can extend myself away and win the battle for head height, I can look to take his back. Your opponent knows this, and they're going to try to bring their head higher than yours, and they might even try to physically bring it over the top of your head. So now when I go to win the battle for head height, it's super hard. But because he's driving into me, he's driving to his right, and I have his right arm trapped across his body, he's giving me momentum and power in the direction of which he has no base. And we're going to exploit that. My right arm is going to go underneath, and I'm going to take a scoop grip. Now my legs are going to do that same splitting action that I showed you guys earlier. And we get up into this good attacking position. Now everything kicks out to my left side. My right hand punches across my face, so I can start to pull his hips and everything across. And we take him up and over with a pendulum sweep. One key note on the pendulum sweep, guys. Come back up. If you can. Good enough. So from here, when I take my partner over, I don't want him to land on my leg. If he lands on my leg, he's pinning me down. So now I'm going to go up and he's going to go get up. Get up, just turn into me. Yeah. And he's going to be able to get on top because he's pinning my leg down. So we've got to make sure that it doesn't land on the leg, and here's how we're going to do that. I use my 2-on-1 gripping to send the arm by. New shrimp for an angle, and I get my lapel grip. He brings his head over my head, and now I go into my pendulum sweep action. When he falls, I take my left leg and cut it in this direction. So Adam falls on the mat, he doesn't fall off my leg. Now from here I can drive off my left toes, come up and take the mount. So that's an incredibly important detail with the pendulum sweep. So we have a number of ways to set up the side scissor. I'll just quickly refresh those. If he gathers up my two lapels, we have this guy, and we can hit the pendulum sweep out of there. Let's say I go to do the same thing, but he drops his elbow. I go across, I strip his grip, 2-on-1, and I send the arm back. Now I can hit a pendulum sweep to my right. Maybe you have a situation where he gathers up my two lapels and he grabs my cuff. So now I want to go to break his grip, but I can't. No problem. I go underneath, grab his wrist, pummel to the outside, snap the grip off, and now from here I can look to get him across cuff and drag across. If he goes hands in my armpits, I cross strip. My hands go up above my head, I peel the hand, getting a cross cuff grip, and I send it by. Any one of these grip sequences that we looked at 4 weeks ago will work just fine to set up the pendulum sweep or the back take, as long as you get that arm across your center line and break the posture for the side scissor. Now, last, we're going to look at using the the top lock as a means to trap the arm to the center line and go into the pendulum sweep out of there. So we know that to get to the top lock, we need 45 inside. Do you remember what that means? 45-degree posture and elbow inside the hip. I'll do it on the other side. 45-degree posture and elbow inside the hip. This will allow me to begin climbing my legs up to a top lock. Now, everybody does out of the top lock. They all figure four their hands and they start stacking. So he figure fours to protect his left arm. He's going to figure four the other way. There he goes. Now I can't extend that left arm. There we go. So now, I'm going to take a collar's eye, and my left arm is going to take a scoop grip. And now I'm going to use my legs in that same fashion we looked at to take him up and over. I make sure he doesn't land on my leg, and we climb up to the mount. So, we have a lot of good things for you guys to study and work on this week. We've seen the flower sweep, where I just get my two grips and I kick. Okay, we saw the flower sweep and we used it to set up the hip sweep, which we're going to look at the hip sweep in more detail in a few weeks. So that's a couple good options with the flower sweep. The flower sweep is one of my absolute favorites. These two grips, the straight cuff grip and gripping low on the pants, they're very, very innocuous grips. My opponent doesn't really feel very threatened by them, doesn't sense a lot of danger, and hence he'll take a lot of people by surprise when you hit the flower sweep. But with the flower sweep, it's very strong because it's that surprising factor and it's not very threatening, but it's not the mechanically strongest. A mechanically stronger variation is the pendulum sweep, where I start to get my hips and my legs out to a perpendicular angle, and now I can pull my opponent forward. We can pendulum sweep with either the tricep grip, which sometimes you'll have success, or sometimes your opponent will extend an arm and give you submissions. But if you want the strongest variations of the pendulum sweep, always combine the idea of a pendulum sweep with an arm trap, trapping the arm across your center line in either a side scissor or a top lock. So I hope that's enough information for you guys to digest this week. The flower sweep and the pendulum sweep are a couple of my absolute favorite sweeps from the closed guard. I'd say out of all the sweeps we're studying this month, these two take the lion's share for my success. We're also going to look at the scissor sweep and the hip sweep, and I do have some success with those, but the flower sweep and the pendulum sweep far and away give me more success than the other two. So make sure you guys devote a lot of time and attention to developing, learning, and getting good at these sweeps.